Gender roles in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt is often depicted as a civilization of grandeur and mystery, with its towering pyramids, enigmatic sphinxes, and rich pantheon of gods and goddesses. However, underlying these monumental achievements was a complex societal structure with distinct roles for men and women. Understanding gender roles in ancient Egypt requires a multifaceted exploration of their legal rights, social responsibilities, religious functions, and daily lives. This comprehensive examination will provide insight into how gender influenced various aspects of life in ancient Egypt, from the royal courts to the everyday experiences of commoners. Legal rights and social status. Gender roles in ancient Egypt were defined by a combination of social norms, legal rights, and cultural practices. Unlike many contemporary civilizations, ancient Egyptian women enjoyed a relatively high degree of legal autonomy and social status. Women's legal rights. Women in ancient Egypt had the legal capacity to own, inherit, and bequeath property independently of their male relatives. They could engage in business transactions, including buying and selling land, slaves, and goods. Legal documents, such as wills and marriage contracts, show that women actively participated in legal and economic activities. They could also initiate divorce and retain rights over their dowries and personal property. Men's legal roles. Men, particularly those in higher social strata, had more extensive legal powers and responsibilities. They held key positions in administration, governance, and the military. Men were often the heads of households, responsible for the economic well-being of their families. While men typically managed agricultural estates and participated in trade, their legal rights were often exercised within a broader patriarchal context. Social and familial roles. The social and familial roles of men and women in ancient Egypt were shaped by cultural expectations and practical necessities. Women's social roles. Women's primary social roles were centered around the household and family. As wives and mothers, they were responsible for managing domestic affairs, raising children, and maintaining the home. Women were also involved in agricultural work and craft production, particularly in rural areas. In urban settings, women could work as weavers, midwives, and professional mourners. Men's social roles. Men were expected to provide for and protect their families. They worked as farmers, craftsmen, scribes, and soldiers. Men of higher status could become priests, officials, and nobles, playing significant roles in governance and religious ceremonies. Education and training for boys focused on preparing them for their future professional roles, often following in their fathers' footsteps. Gender in religion and mythology. Religion was central to ancient Egyptian life, and both men and women played crucial roles in religious practices and mythology. Goddesses and female deities. The pantheon of ancient Egypt included powerful goddesses such as Isis, Hathor, and Sekhmet. Isis, the goddess of motherhood and magic, was venerated as a protector of children and a healer. Hathor, associated with love, beauty, and music, was also a deity of fertility and childbirth. Sekhmet, the lioness goddess, symbolized both destruction and healing. These goddesses reflected and reinforced the societal importance of women's roles in nurturing and protection. Male gods and religious roles. Male deities, such as Osiris, Ra, and Ammonius, dominated the religious hierarchy. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, symbolized resurrection and eternal life. Ra, the sun god, was the supreme deity who governed the cosmos. Ammonius, often merged with Ra as Ammonius Ra, represented kingship and power. Priests, who were predominantly men, conducted religious rituals, maintained temple properties, and played a crucial role in interpreting divine will. Priestesses and female religious roles. Despite the male dominance in priesthood, women could serve as priestesses, especially in the cults of female deities. The most prominent position for women was that of the god's wife of Ammonius, a title held by royal women who performed high-status religious functions. Priestesses participated in temple rituals, music, and dance, and they were often depicted in religious iconography. Daily life and work. The daily lives of men and women in ancient Egypt were influenced by their gender, with distinct activities and responsibilities. Women's daily life. Women's daily routines revolved around household management and child-rearing. They prepared food, made clothes, and engaged in small-scale trading. In rural areas, women helped with planting and harvesting crops. Upper-class women had servants to assist with domestic chores, allowing them to focus on social and religious activities. Men's daily life. Men's daily work varied depending on their occupation. Farmers worked the fields, maintained irrigation systems, and managed livestock. Craftsmen created goods ranging from pottery to intricate jewelry. Scribes, an educated elite, recorded transactions, legal documents, and literary works. Noblemen and officials oversaw administrative tasks and managed large estates. Children's roles and education. Children's upbringing and education were also influenced by gender. Boys were trained in their fathers' trades or professions, while girls learned domestic skills from their mothers. Education for boys, especially those of higher status, included learning to read and write hieroglyphics, essential for administrative and religious roles. Gender and power. Power dynamics in ancient Egypt were closely linked to gender, with significant differences in the public and private spheres. Women in power. While political power was predominantly male-dominated, women could wield significant influence, particularly within the royal family. Queens and royal mothers, such as Nefertiti and Hatshepsut, played crucial roles in governance. Hatshepsut, one of the few female pharaohs, ruled as a king and was depicted in male regalia. Royal women often acted as regents for young pharaohs and were involved in diplomatic relations and temple patronage. Men's dominance in politics. Men held the majority of political and military positions. The pharaoh, as the ultimate ruler, was male in most cases. High-ranking officials, viziers, and military leaders were also men. The political and administrative systems were structured to maintain male dominance, with lineage and inheritance often traced through the male line. Gender and death. Beliefs about death and the afterlife were central to ancient Egyptian culture, and these beliefs were reflected in gender-specific burial practices and funerary goods. Women's funerary practices. Women's tombs and burial goods often emphasize their roles as mothers and wives. Items such as jewelry, cosmetics, and household goods were included in burials to ensure comfort in the afterlife. Tomb inscriptions and art highlighted women's piety and their role in maintaining household harmony. Men's funerary practices. Men's burials included tools, weapons, and items related to their professions. High-status men had elaborate tombs with extensive inscriptions and artwork depicting their achievements and duties. The tomb of Tutankhamun, for example, contained a wealth of artifacts reflecting his royal status and religious significance. Gender roles in art and literature. Art and literature provide valuable insights into gender roles and societal expectations in ancient Egypt. Women in art. Women were often depicted in art as nurturing figures, engaged in domestic activities, or as participants in religious rituals. Artistic conventions portrayed women as slender and graceful, emphasizing beauty and fertility. Queens and goddesses were depicted with symbols of power and protection, reflecting their elevated status. Men in art. Men were depicted in various roles, including warriors, scribes, and laborers. Pharaohs were portrayed as powerful and divine, often shown smiting enemies or performing religious rituals. Artistic representations of men emphasize strength, authority, and their roles as providers and protectors. Gender in literature. Literature, including myths, hymns, and wisdom texts, reflected and reinforced gender roles. Texts like The Instruction of Tahotep offered advice on proper conduct, emphasizing virtues such as loyalty, respect, and humility, often with gender-specific guidance. Love poems and songs celebrated romantic and familial relationships, highlighting the complementary roles of men and women. Conclusion. Gender roles in ancient Egypt were complex and multifaceted, shaped by legal rights, social expectations, religious beliefs, and economic activities. While men and women had distinct roles, the society allowed for a degree of flexibility and interdependence. Women enjoyed relatively high legal and social status compared to many other ancient civilizations, participating actively in economic and religious life. Men dominated the political and military spheres, but women could wield significant influence, especially within the royal family. The rich cultural heritage of ancient Egypt, preserved in art, literature, and archaeological remains, provides a detailed picture of how gender shaped the lives of its people. Understanding these roles offers valuable insights into the broader dynamics of ancient Egyptian society and its enduring legacy.